Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Now, Slovakia's relationship with Ukraine has been under strain, particularly in light of Prime Minister Robert Fico's sharp rhetoric and policy signals regarding energy supplies. His stance, including the suggestion that Slovakia may halt electricity exports to Ukraine, has raised questions about the country's alignment within the EU and NATO. Beyond immediate energy concerns, how does Slovakia see its role in the region, and where is this relationship with Ukraine heading? Now, joining us today on TVP World to explore these dynamics is Grigorij Mesežnikov, president of the Slovakian Institute for Public Affairs. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So, just to give us a quick reminder, how would you describe current Slovakian relationship with Ukraine? How does Fico's rhetoric translate to concerns when it comes to policy changes?
Well, I think that Slovakia and Ukraine is now in very sharp diplomatic and political crisis. It's a conflict, it's a dispute. Unfortunately, escalation happened after Prime Minister Robert Fico attacked Ukraine for its decision to stop transfer of Russian gas through its territory to Slovakia. Then Mr. Fico went to Moscow. He met with Vladimir Putin. Of course, in such situation in which Russia is still conducting war against Ukraine, it was considered by Ukrainian leadership as an unfriendly approach. And since the time we are witnessing the signs of escalation in relations between both countries. And of course, it creates a feeling that Slovakia is gradually heading in a different direction than before. Before, at the beginning of Russian aggression to Ukraine, Slovakia stood on the right side of history, but now Slovakia is rather, Slovak government, Mr. Fico, now they are manifesting the different approach, the different position.
Right, like you said, Slovakia historically actually supported Ukraine, and well, up until quite recently. But of course, after this whole energy fiasco, things have changed a little bit. How much shift are we really talking about?
Well, we are talking about the political shift, because what we are witnessing now, everything is a consequence of the change of the government in Slovakia in September 2023. Before, Slovakia was among the most committed supporters of Ukraine. We really helped Ukrainians in all areas, politically, economically, financially, diplomatically, in humanitarian area, and especially in military area. So, but Mr. Fico, he had different concept of foreign policy, and he started to implement. He started to implement immediately, but still Slovakia now not in the position of the enemy, of course, of Ukraine, but Slovakia stopped delivering military aid from its own reserves. But Slovak private companies are producing, for example, armament, munition for Ukrainian army. And we are cooperating, Slovakia is cooperating in Ukraine and many other areas, but politically, because Mr. Fico, he has a different perception of the war, of the reasons of the war, and he is known as a pro-Russian politician from the beginning of political career. Now he is trying to somehow balance this more friendly relation to Russia and dealing with Ukraine about some issues which Robert Fico considers as a more important. For example, transfer of Russian gas through Ukrainian territory. For him, it's more important for us than support of Ukraine, which has absolutely crucial importance. Ukraine is fighting not only for its own independence and freedom, but also for freedom of all of us, for democracy, for normal rules of international relations.
All right, so as you mentioned, perhaps the change in Slovakia's stance has to do also with the change of the government, with the Fico stepping in and things taking a drastic turn. Now, here's the chicken or the egg question. Is it because of the change of government that changed the policy towards Ukraine, or is there a sentiment against the support of Ukraine in the cost of Slovakia's economical interests that led to the change of the government in the first place?
Well, it's of course a combination, but I think that the main reason is, of course, the governmental policies, and governmental policies are based on the proportion of political forces in Slovakia. So the change of the government in September 2023 was absolutely crucial. It was the main reason. And of course, any government should be pragmatic instead of implementation of the ideologically based line. I think that good government should care about the real needs of the country and the good development in the country. And relations with Ukraine are very important. Maybe just to add some sentences about the domestic context of what is now happening in Slovakia. Mr. Fico, in his negative attitude to Ukraine, started a couple of weeks ago. He started attacking President Zelensky with quite offensive remarks. And even now he is working with the narrative that Ukraine is somehow involving in domestic political development. Now we are witnessing in Slovakia the series of massive rallies, protest rallies against governmental policies, including attitude to Ukraine. Because some politicians in the ruling coalition, they admitted that in some circumstances Slovakia can think about withdrawal for European Union. It's a red line. It's a red line for Slovak population, and then people are coming to streets, to the squares to demonstrate its negative, critical attitude to the government. And Mr. Fico and some of his loyalists are now interpreting these rallies as a consequence of Ukrainian interference, involvement in our domestic affairs. I think it's absolutely delusional. It's not true. It's lie. But it's something which is characterizing the current government and its leadership.
All right, definitely. It is a sign of where the current government is taking the country. And like you mentioned, a lot of kind of these claims that are unsubstantiated being floated around. Now, going back to the situation with the gas pipeline, because we do know that is the kind of fire that lit the power keg between the deterioration of the two countries. Is there anything that the Western countries, Ukrainian allies, can do to alleviate the situation? Or is there a possibility to provide Slovakia with any sort of alternative so they do not have to rely so heavily on Russian energy? Or do you think in this case the government is just going to be more friendly to Kremlin no matter what, and the gas pipeline is perhaps just a convenient excuse?
Well, unfortunately, I think that the second factor today is more present in public discourse than all others. And I think that Slovakia should be in line with the common European policy. And the common European policy was to just to cut from Russian energetic sources, because Russia is not a reliable partner, but Russia is aggressive country, and Russia is using energy as a tool for blackmail. So decision of Ukrainian government, and I have to say that Ukraine warned long time ago that it's stopping the transit of Russian gas to Europe, and Slovak government had a lot of time to do something with this, and Slovakia is not fully dependent only on this pipelines going from Russia through Ukraine to Slovakia. We have alternative potential sources, but Fico's government is insisting that the best way would be restoration of transit of gas through Ukrainian territory. Ukraine is not rejecting the transit of gas to Slovakia to its territory, but not from Russia. Now I know that there are some negotiations with Azerbaijan for transit of Azerbaijani gas through Turkey, Balkan states, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine to Slovakia. But Robert Fico is permanently speaking about the need to have the Russian gas. I don't know what is behind of this. Maybe it would be cheaper. But for the country, I think the strategic considerations are very important. So it's really difficult to predict what will happen concretely in relations between Ukraine and Slovakia concerning transit of the gas. But your position of European Union is absolutely clear. So the member states of European Union should reduce and should cut transit of gas and oil also from Russia in order to be strategically independent. And current Slovak government position on this issue is not in compliance with the common European line.
Right, like I said, the situation is still a little bit unpredictable, but is there any potential, is there a world where Slovakia could recalibrate its position, or do you think we're looking at a lasting shift in policy?
Well, I'm quite skeptical, because having this government, which is consistently presenting its position to Ukraine in negative mode, and especially now looking to the domestic discourse, to domestic development, when Mr. Fico is now working with the concept of even potential coup d'etat in the country with the involvement of foreign agents, and even naming Ukraine in this context, I'm not sure that the situation will be solving in proper manner, and unfortunately, we have to be prepared for even escalation of relations between Ukraine and Slovakia.
Right, and speaking of escalation, we also have some very strong comments coming from Fico himself. On January 17th, he said that, quote, "I am a Slovak prime minister, not a Ukrainian servant." What kind of message is he trying to send with that sort of comment?
Well, it's a presentation of his personal position. I think that he doesn't like Ukraine, and even he more doesn't like Vladimir Zelensky. He's speaking about Vladimir Zelensky in quite derogatory, I think, even manner. And concerning the Ukraine, Robert Fico, he has probably different expectations from the finality of Russian aggression against Ukraine, Ukrainian war. Probably he expects some arrangement which de facto would give benefits rather for Russia than for Ukraine. The whole this peaceful rhetoric which Slovak governmental representatives are using in their communication with either international partners or domestic audience is that, first of all, the peace should be restored in any price, and any price would mean that Russia will gain some benefits which de facto will be reward for its aggressive policy. So it's absolutely unacceptable.
All right, but going back to the pragmatism issue, like, is there a point to stand that perhaps peace need to be achieved somehow?
If you are speaking about the peace, Slovak-Ukrainian relations, because the pragmatism here can be reached very quickly if Slovakia would agree with the transit of Azerbaijani gas to Slovakia. I mean, it will solve many issues. The situation will be, I think, that quite good in such circumstances. But concerning the peace itself, I think that it's the supreme rule of for any just peace that aggressor shouldn't be rewarded.
Right.
That results of aggression can harm the victim of aggression. Ukraine, as I said, Ukraine is fighting for not only itself, but for all of us. And yes, peace is better than war, but bad peace just can provoke from the aggressor further intentions to continue. And we should be, Europe, the world democratic community of states should be very careful considering possible scenarios of reaching the peace.
Thank you so much for your input and insight, and thank you for breaking all of this down. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much. It was my big pleasure.
Cheers.
All the best.
And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.